Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. The second I stepped out of the car, I knew I wasn't welcome. 11 years gone, and not one person looked surprised to see me standing there in my Postal Service dress blues. No gasps, no tears, just tight lips and cold stares. Like I'd parked a garbage truck next to their Lexus lineup. My name's Erin Blanton. I'm 37, and until this morning, I hadn't set foot on the Blanton family estate since I walked away at 26 with nothing but my duffel bag and a broken jaw courtesy of my mother's second husband. Blanton Winery, just outside Charlottesville, still stank of varnished wood, money, and bullshit. I wasn't here for closure or forgiveness. I was here because the only man who ever treated me like I wasn't garbage had just died. My grandfather, Hank Blanton. He was the only reason I ever came back. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I stepped through the stone archway into the reception hall. The crowd was dressed in vineyard chic, beige linens, fake grief, and flutes of Chardonnay. Nobody moved toward me. My sister Dana caught my eye, then looked away like I was a stain on her dress. My mom, she didn't even flinch, just stared through me like I was an unpaid invoice. "Did you even get invited?" a woman whispered behind me. I didn't turn around. The speeches were already rolling. Dana stood up near the fireplace, gripping a glass of red and spouting nonsense about family unity and Grandpa's legacy of love. I nearly choked. She left him in assisted care for the last year of his life and never visited. She was lying through her bleached teeth. I kept my back straight and eyes forward. People whispered, someone chuckled. I saw one of Hank's old military buddies, gray hair, lean frame, pressed jacket, lean against the wall like he wanted no part in this circus. He caught my eye. When Dana wrapped up her little Oscar moment, everyone clapped like trained seals. That's when the old vet slid up beside me, pressed something into my hand, and walked away without a word. I looked down. Folded paper. 5 words, scrawled in sharp block letters. "See me after the reading." I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I slipped it into my coat pocket and walked deeper into the house, ready to collect what was mine. I followed the hallway past the dining room, down to the old office with the thick oak door. Same heavy wood paneling, same leather chairs, same sharp scent of pipe tobacco soaked into the carpet from decades ago. The lawyer, Mr. Greer, stood as I walked in but didn't offer a handshake, just pointed toward the back wall where the rest of the family had already gathered. I didn't sit. I stayed by the bookshelf near the door, arms crossed. Dana lounged in the big leather chair with her heels kicked off and a smirk half-cocked like she already knew what was coming. Mom sat across from her, back straight, pearls tight around her neck, flipping through a folder like this was just another board meeting. Greer cleared his throat. "We'll begin." He shuffled papers, slid on his glasses, and started reading. Standard stuff at first, donations to a few charities, a car to a cousin I didn't recognize. Then he paused and looked up. "To my granddaughter, Erin Blanton," he said, eyes steady on me. "I leave full ownership of the primary residence and surrounding land. That includes the vineyard home, the barn, and the full tract labeled Parcel 12. Dana stopped tapping her nails. Mom froze mid-page. Greer continued, voice steady. "She will also receive $5.2 million in liquid assets from personal investment accounts and proceeds from the trust fund." Dana sat forward. "What the hell are you talking about?" Greer didn't answer her. He turned the page. "Additionally, Erin Blanton is to receive the 42% ownership stake formerly held by Henry Blanton in Blanton Family Wines, LLC, effective immediately." The silence in that room was heavier than a casket. Dana shot to her feet. "That's impossible. That was supposed to revert to Mom and me. We talked about this. We saw the draft." "That was never signed," Greer said, flat and firm. Dana's face flushed deep red. He had dementia. He was confused. "That stake belongs in the family." I finally spoke. "I am family, whether you like it or not." She spun toward me like she'd just remembered I was there. "You don't get to show up after 11 years and take what you didn't earn?" Mom didn't stand, but her voice was sharp. "You think you can just take control of what we built?" I looked her in the eye. "I'm not taking anything. I was given it." Greer cleared his throat again and pulled out a smaller envelope. "There's also this. A letter Mr. Blanton instructed I deliver personally." He handed it to me, plain white envelope, thick paper inside, folded once. "Erin, start with trust, then dig. HB." My stomach dropped. Grandpa always wrote like that. Simple words, heavy meaning. I didn't open the rest. I just folded it back and slipped it into my coat. Dana was pacing now. We can test this. Right, Mom? We have grounds. This is a setup. Mom said nothing. Her mouth was tight, eyes locked on the lawyer like she was running numbers in her head. Greer didn't respond. He was already packing up. I turned to leave. That room was too small to hold what was about to happen. In the hallway, the air felt colder. That's when she appeared. Kayla, Grandpa's assistant. She looked different out of her office blazer, almost invisible in that dark hallway, holding a binder close to her chest. She leaned in as I passed and slipped something into my hand, a flash drive. Silver, unlabeled. Use this only if they push back, she whispered. I nodded once, no questions. I walked straight out the front door, past the fake mourners, past the wine bar and the whispers, down the steps into the gravel drive. I didn't look back. The motel was one of those places with flickering neon and cigarette burns on every surface. I tossed my coat onto the bed and locked the door behind me. The AC rattled like it had asthma, but at least it worked. I pulled the curtains tight, grabbed my laptop, and plugged in the flash drive. It asked for a password. I stared at the blinking cursor, then typed the one thing I figured Grandpa would have picked. Blackthorn Echo, the name of his old Army unit. The folders loaded in an instant. Emails. Audio. Confidential. I clicked emails first. Hundreds. All organized. I scrolled. At first, boring vineyard logistics. Then the subject lines changed. Will update. Timeline for legal resolution. EB concern. Steps if Aaron contests. I clicked one. It was from Dana to Mom, dated 2 years ago. If she shows up, we push for incapacity. Dad's mental state is our safety net. Another one, we have to get the notary on board before April, or the revision won't hold. Then one that made my throat tighten. Any luck with a court-ordered removal? There's still that option. Quietly, they didn't just scheme to erase me from the will. They talked about erasing me legally. I clicked audio next, a static hum, then Kayla's voice. Tight, rushed, like she recorded it in one take. Okay, this is my record. Dana ordered the CFO to move funds from the estate into Bristlepine Consulting. That's not a real firm. I traced it to a P.O. box in Tennessee. And I found copies of the forged signature logs. Hank never signed that version of the trust. I played the second clip. I told Mrs. Blanton it was fraud. She said, then bury it. I have the paper trail. If anything happens to me, it's all in the folder labeled 3B, off-site. I slammed the laptop shut for a second. My hands were shaking. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. These people didn't just cut me out. They built a whole machine to erase me and funnel money under my name. I had no idea how deep it went. When I calmed down, I opened the last folder, confidential. Inside was a photo. Old, slightly faded. Me, maybe 8 years old, sitting on the grass at some summer event. The label read, Fort Allen Picnic, 1996. A man crouched beside me, smiling. It wasn't Grandpa Hank. I stared at the man's face. Short, dark hair, strong jaw. Same weird cowlick I fight every morning. Same eyes. In thick red ink, written across the bottom. Truth. Confidential. I couldn't breathe for a second. That man looked more like me than anyone in the Blanton family ever did. I sat back on the motel bed, laptop still open, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the room. Everything I thought I knew, about them, about me, was shifting. Quiet, fast, violent. I looked back at the screen. If this was real, I wasn't just the black sheep. I might not be a Blanton at all. I parked out front of the Vineyard office like I owned the place. Because now, legally, I did. The glass double doors opened into the main boardroom, where polished wine barrels lined the walls like props, and a massive table stretched across the room like a runway for egos. They were all there. Dana, her husband Troy, 2 Blanton cousins, the CFO, a few shareholders who looked about 1 cappuccino away from a heart attack. Dana barely looked at me. Troy stood up fast. This meeting is for partners and authorized stakeholders only. I kept walking. Good thing I'm both. He stepped in front of the chair at the end of the table, arms out like a bouncer. You're not listed on the active management roster. You're trespassing. I dropped the manila folder onto the table so hard the room went silent. Inside, notarized documentation from the estate lawyer, transfer of ownership, percentage breakdown, tax stamps. 42%, I said. Effective immediately. Greer, the same lawyer from the will reading, walked in behind me and gave a tight nod to the room. I verified the documents. She is now the largest single shareholder in Blanton Family Wines. Dana didn't move, but I saw it. Her cheek twitched. She was cracking under the makeup and the forced calm. "Are you kidding me?" Troy hissed at her. "You said this was locked down. You said she was out." Dana pressed her palms flat against the table. "There's no way this holds. The amendment was supposed to be filed." Greer stayed calm. "It wasn't, and there's no legal basis to exclude her now." Then came the next blow. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. "Kayla," I said. Her voice came through the speaker, loud and clear. "I'm here." The whole table turned. "I've provided copies of the audit logs from the estate database," she said. "There's clear evidence of unauthorized access by Eleanor Blanton 2 months before Mr. Blanton's death. Files were altered. Logs were wiped, but we have backups." The CFO, a heavyset guy named Richie, leaned forward. "I've seen the logs. The changes happened from Eleanor's admin login. That's not speculation. That's fact." Dana opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Troy sat down like someone had unplugged him. I kept my voice even. "You tried to steal my legacy. You failed." No one argued. Meeting adjourned. I walked out of the boardroom without a single word from Dana or Troy following me. The Blanton cousins wouldn't even make eye contact. The silence was more satisfying than a courtroom win. Outside, the wind had picked up. Clouds were rolling over the vineyard, shadows slipping across the rows of vines. My car was parked right where I left it, but something was tucked under the wiper blade. I pulled it free, a folded piece of thick paper, edges burned like someone had singed them with a lighter. Inside was a copy of Grandpa Hank's letter, the same one he'd written me before the will reading. But this time, it had a second page, a photocopy of my birth certificate. Mother, Eleanor Blanton. Father, blank. No name, no signature, just empty space where identity was supposed to be. I stared at it, heart pounding, mind racing. Who the hell was I? I didn't wait. I drove straight from the vineyard to the address Kayla gave me, some off-the-books records facility Grandpa had set up years ago, supposedly for wine distribution contracts. Looked more like a glorified storage bunker outside Scottsville. Metal building, cracked pavement, a keypad on the door, and cameras tucked under the gutter line. I buzzed twice. Kayla opened the door halfway. No words, just a tired nod. She led me down a dim hallway that smelled like dust and printer toner, then into a back room lined wall-to-wall with gray filing cabinets. She stopped at one near the corner, pulled out a key from around her neck, and unlocked the bottom drawer. "You'll find it under Private E. Blanton. He told me to give you full access if things ever went sideways." "They went sideways," I said. She left without another word. I sat on the cold metal stool and yanked the drawer open. Toward the back was a thick file labeled exactly like she said. The paper inside was dense, clipped together in sections. I flipped to the first major divider and stopped. A draft will, not the one from the estate reading. This one was dated earlier, hand annotated. At the bottom of the first page, Aaron Blanton is to co-found and lead the McCrae Foundation for Military Widows, jointly with Henry Blanton, funded by the estate and vineyard profits. My eyes scanned the rest: board seats, funding commitments, roles. Then, no signature, no notary stamp, just a will that never got filed. Behind it, folded tight, was a letter. Grandpa's handwriting was sharp but uneven. They made me promise. I hated it. I was a coward, Aaron. You deserved better. But I couldn't fight Eleanor and Dana. Not then. I did what I could behind the curtain. If you're reading this, they've made their move. Now it's your turn. I folded it back with shaking hands. He knew. He'd known the whole damn time. Another clipped section underneath. Old personnel records, medical forms, some tax paperwork I didn't fully understand. But one line jumped out, again and again. Different last names. Not Blanton. One in particular came up more than once. Daniel McCrae. I kept digging. Near the bottom was a red envelope. Thick, sealed in wax. In Grandpa's handwriting, open only if Dana moves against you. Well, she did. I broke the seal and pulled out a single photo. Old, grainy. Me, probably 7 or 8, sitting in the grass beside a man in army green. The label read, Fort Allen, 1996. I had never seen this man before, but I knew him. He looked just like me. Dark, stubborn eyes, crooked left eyebrow, same sharp chin, Same tired smile I'd seen in the mirror 1,000 times. A second slip of paper behind the photo read, Daniel McCrae, Honorable, Discharge, 1984. Not a Blanton, no flourish, no apology, just truth. I sat there, chest tight, blood pounding in my ears. This wasn't some petty secret. This was blood. This was identity. They didn't just leave me out of the legacy, they erased my origin, buried it under money, and made damn sure I wouldn't know where to start digging. Until now. I grabbed the whole file, tucked the envelope in my coat, and locked the drawer behind me. As I turned to go, Kayla stood in the doorway with a quiet look that said she already knew what I'd found. I need answers, I told her. She didn't blink. Then go to the one person still lying. The cafe Dana picked was all white marble and exposed brass. Someplace that served $12 toast and thought parking should be valet only. She was already there when I walked in, sitting on the patio in a sleeveless blouse, oversized sunglasses, and her signature air of fake composure. She didn't stand, didn't smile. Glad to see you finally got the message, she said, motioning to the empty chair. I sat across from her, dropped the red envelope on the table, and slid it forward. You knew. She didn't even flinch. Of course I knew. That hit harder than I thought it would. She lifted her espresso cup like we were just two sisters catching up. You always made things complicated, Erin. You weren't supposed to come back. You were supposed to stay lost. That's how we all agreed it worked best. We? I asked. She smirked. Mom, me, even Hank for a while? I leaned in. You mean the man who left me the vineyard? The one who wrote me into his will and tried to set up a foundation in my name? That was guilt. Nothing more, she said, eyes sharp. You were always the side story, Erin. The messy one. The quiet mistake we didn't talk about after the wine started flowing. I held her stare. You forged documents. You laundered vineyard profits through shell companies tied to dead accounts and empty firms. She looked down at her plate, slicing into a croissant like I hadn't just accused her of multiple felonies. I did what I had to do to survive. Who forged the last will update? She didn't answer. I asked again, voice lower. Was it you? Her knife clinked hard against the plate. Still no answer. I pushed my chair back. You should lawyer up. Dana finally looked up. Her smile was gone. You think this is over? You walk in here with a little folder and some dusty letters and think you're safe? I said nothing. She stood, tossed a 20 on the table, and grabbed her purse. As she turned to leave, she leaned in close enough for me to feel her breath on my cheek. You're already surrounded. She walked off without looking back. My phone buzzed as I was still processing her tone. Text from Kayla. They just filed an injunction to freeze the estate. I didn't even sit down when I got the text. I turned and walked straight out of the cafe and drove straight to Richmond County Courthouse. By the time I got there, the injunction had already been stamped. I walked through the courthouse doors and saw Dana and Mom standing with a wall of lawyers. 3 men in navy suits and 1 woman in a cream pantsuit tapping away on a tablet like she was defusing a bomb. Dana looked bored. Mom looked smug. No surprise there. Kayla met me inside the courtroom. She handed me a folder with a quiet nod, then slid into the bench behind me. I stood alone at the plaintiff's table. The judge, an older man with gray hair and permanent lines around his eyes, banged the gavel once. Let's move quickly, he said. We're here to hear argument on the emergency injunction filed against Erin Blanton regarding control of the Blanton estate and business holdings. One of their lawyers stood. Your Honor, my clients have reason to believe Ms. Blanton is not of sound mind. She has a documented history of estrangement, military trauma, and has only recently resurfaced after over a decade with no contact. He looked straight at me. We respectfully request a full psych evaluation before any further decisions are made. We believe the current will is the result of undue influence. I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, opened my folder, and handed copies to the clerk. My name is Erin Blanton. I served 10 years in the United States Army, including 3 overseas tours, 1 as a combat logistics officer. These are my records, letters of commendation, and discharge documents. I'm not unstable. I'm a threat to them. The judge raised a brow. Proceed. I clicked my pen. Attached, you'll also find digital and physical evidence that the version of the will submitted by Eleanor and Dana Blanton was forged. The signature doesn't match. The date it was allegedly signed falls outside the timeline of my grandfather's legal mental competence, confirmed by his attending physician. The cream-suited lawyer opened her mouth, but I kept going. Furthermore, Kayla Raymond, assistant to my grandfather for the past 7 years, has submitted time-stamped email records and system access logs showing illegal tampering with trust documents by Eleanor Blanton. That data's been verified by a third-party forensics tech. Kayla stood and handed a printed binder to the judge's clerk. Exhibits A through G, Your Honor. Chain of custody included. And there's this, I added, pulling out a scan of the notary log. The signature supposedly witnessed for the amended will was signed by a notary who wasn't even in the state of Virginia that week. She was in Arizona, burying her mother. I have her sworn statement. Dana's neck twitched. Mom's lips went razor thin. Their lawyers scrambled, whispering in huddles, flipping through folders like it made a difference. The judge leaned back in his chair, silent for a long moment. "I'm not making a ruling today," he finally said. "But this is no longer a closed case. The injunction is lifted for now. Ms. Blanton retains control of the estate and assets pending further proceedings." He banged the gavel once. I turned and walked out before Dana or Mom could say a word. But of course, Mom followed me into the hallway like she had anything left to lord over me. "You'll never carry the Blanton name with dignity," she snapped. I stopped and turned to face her, calm and direct. "I'm not trying to," I said. "I'm trying to find out who buried it." She opened her mouth again, but I was already walking away. My phone buzzed. Text from Kayla. "Look into the Harper Trust. That's where it started." I drove straight from the courthouse to Kayla's apartment. Not her office. Her apartment. She said it was safer. She met me at the door in jeans and a t-shirt, hair tied back, thumb drive already in hand. "It's worse than we thought," she said, pulling me inside. "Much worse." We sat at her dining table, laptops open, papers everywhere. Kayla pulled up the Harper Trust's financial records first. This is what Hank thought he was donating to: scholarships for veterans' kids, widow grants, housing rehab. Looks good on paper, right? I nodded. "But that's the surface. Dig deeper." She opened a second spreadsheet, internal payment ledgers she pulled from the Vineyard's finance server. The names started jumping out at me fast. Same vendors, same account numbers, different fund labels. "Shell companies," she said. Dozens of them. Some registered to P.O. boxes, some no longer active, some don't even exist anymore. I leaned closer. "All under the Harper Trust?" She nodded. Dana approved every single disbursement. "Here, look." She pulled up the scanned documents. All signed by Dana. And notice the amounts? Each transaction was just under reporting thresholds. $9,800, $9,990, $9,600. "Anything over 10 grand triggers IRS alerts," I muttered. "Exactly," she said. And she knew that. I flipped to a new page. Rachel's name was on one of the co-signatures. She was in on it? "She at least knew," Kayla said. "She signed off on payments tagged under Program 3B. That code again. Same one I saw in the flash drive folder. What the hell is Program 3B? Kayla turned her screen around. The laundering loop. Vineyard payroll funds were rerouted into 3B under special contractor accounts. But the contractors didn't exist. They were shells. Some matched names of dead employees. She tapped her screen again. One shell company, Bristle Pine Consulting, was flagged 2 years ago by a former Vineyard bookkeeper. She filed a complaint. What happened? Kayla's voice went low. She disappeared, took a leave, never came back. No exit paperwork, no follow-up. My blood ran cold. All this time, Grandpa thought he was funding hope. Truth was, Dana was using the trust like her personal laundry machine. How much money are we talking? I asked. Conservatively, over $3 million. I sat back, mind racing. Faces of donors, employees, families we supposedly helped. It was all a front. And Dana walked around like the second coming of legacy. Do we have enough? Kayla didn't blink. We have enough for a federal audit, criminal investigation, and tax fraud charges. All backed, all documented. I picked up the burner phone we'd been using for communications, dialed the number Kayla gave me. It rang once. Then I said one word. Launch. The courtroom was packed. Second hearing, higher stakes, public this time. Cameras weren't allowed inside yet, but the gallery was stuffed with press and Blanton loyalists in clean suits and stiff smiles. I stood at the plaintiff's table again, same place as before. Only now, I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting to unearth a name. Judge Palmer looked more alert than last time. He already knew this wasn't a probate spat. It was a blood war. I stepped forward, placed 3 items on the evidence table: Grandpa's journal, the DNA results, and the forged amendment. My grandfather kept records, I began, but not all of them were about wine. These journal entries are from 1983 to 1997. They detail conversations, travel, and letters exchanged with a man named Daniel McCrae, Army buddy, also the man who fathered me. I opened the journal and read aloud. She made me swear I'd never tell Aaron who her father was, said it would ruin everything, said he was already gone, and that's how it had to stay. I lifted my head. He wasn't gone, he was erased. I handed the folder of DNA test results to the clerk. 2 weeks ago, I submitted a DNA sample to a private lab. The results show a 99.9% match between me and Daniel McCrae, retired Army, honorable discharge, not a Blanton. Murmurs broke out across the room. I let it roll. And this, I held up the amendment Dana tried to submit, was forged. The notary was out of state. The signature doesn't match Grandpa's legal documents from the same period. It was designed to cut me out not just financially, but biologically. The judge turned toward the defense table. Miss Dana Blanton, you're still under oath from the previous session. Would you like to respond? Dana stood slow, hands gripping the edge of the table like she needed to anchor herself. Her voice cracked on the second word. I didn't write it, she said. But I knew. I knew Aaron wasn't Dad's. Who gave the order? The judge asked. Dana hesitated, then glanced toward my mother. She did. The room went dead quiet. Mom stood suddenly like something inside her finally snapped. He was nothing, she shouted, voice shrill and sharp. A damn mechanic with a GED and a scarred-up face. He wasn't Blanton material. The judge slammed the gavel. Ma'am, sit down or I'll... I made sure he didn't come back, she screamed. I made sure he stayed gone. You think I'd let him ruin our name? I couldn't breathe for a second. Not from shock. I'd suspected for days, but from how loud she said it. She didn't just admit it, she believed it. Bailiff, the judge barked, take her into custody pending formal charges. We're moving to full public trial. Adjourned. 2 guards moved fast. Mom didn't fight, but she didn't go quiet either. She's not one of us, she kept yelling. That blood doesn't belong here. Outside, the courthouse steps were swarmed. Cameras, mics, reporters screaming my name like I'd just detonated a bomb, which, in a way, I had. I pushed through the noise. Kayla handed me an envelope, her face unreadable. I opened it, one sentence written in strong, confident handwriting. They told me you'd be safer without me. It's time we meet. DM. I stood at the podium, hands steady, the crowd in front of me silent. American flags lined the front row, next to folding chairs filled with families, vets, and donors. The dedication plaque behind me read, The McCrae Foundation for Veterans' Children. My voice didn't shake. When I was growing up, people told me legacy was something you inherited. Land, money, a last name, but they were wrong. Legacy isn't what we inherit. It's what we fight to leave behind. The room stayed quiet. Nobody clapped, and I didn't want them to. I stepped down from the mic, heart thudding but even. No nerves, just something deeper, solid, grounding. Kayla met me near the steps, slipping me a sealed white envelope. I didn't ask what it was. I already knew. Final DNA results. Daniel McCrae, my father. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just stood there for a moment, watching the names engraved in bronze along the memorial wall. Soldiers who'd made it back. Soldiers who didn't. A few veterans stood in the front row. One of them raised his hand in a salute. Another followed, then a third. I returned it without a second thought. One clean, sharp motion. I didn't need their approval, but I felt the weight of their respect. It meant something. Off to the side, Dana stood alone in a navy coat, arms crossed, face unreadable. She never came forward, never said a word. And that was fine. I wasn't looking for an apology. I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was the author.